All right, so we're going to take a look at the problem. 3/4 divided by 1/2. Let's take a look at our number line below. This number line goes from 0 to 2. Here's 3/4. 3/4 of what? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. 3/4 out of a whole. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my whole right here. Now, let's think about this question. How many groups of 1/2 are in 3/4? So I'm going to model that here. So from 0 to 1/4, that's a group of 1/4. We're looking for groups of 1/2. So now if I go to 2/4, is 2/4 equivalent to 1/2? Yeah, it is. So there's one group. Go ahead and label that. So we've got one group of 1/2. How many other groups of 1/2 do we have in 3/4? Well, I'm going to go ahead and put another one down. Well, if the question was how many groups of 1/2 are in a whole, I'd have 2, right? But instead, the question is how many groups of 1/2 are in 3/4? So 3/4 is right here. So I don't have a whole group in addition, but I have another half of a group, don't I? So how many groups of 1/2 are in 3/4? Well, there's 1.5. So now let's take a look at that with some common denominator notation. 3/4 divided by 1/2, but we want to use a fraction with a common denominator. So what did we use up here? We used 2/4. So let's go ahead and write that down. 3/4 divided by 2/4. I want to start by looking to see if I can divide straight across. Well, I know that 4 divided by 4 is 1. So if my denominator is 1, what does this mean? Let's talk about that for just a minute. This fraction bar is telling us divide by what? Divide by 1. So let's go through a few things here. What's 10 divided by 1? 10, right? What's 100 divided by 1? 100. What's 5,052,000 divided by 1? Well, it's 5,052,000. Anything divided by 1 is itself. And so now we can come take a look up here. Because dividing by 1 will give us the same number, we're going to go ahead and divide our numerator straight across. 3 divided by 2. Well, 3 divided by 2 can be written as the fraction 3/2. Now, why is it okay to do this? Only because we're dividing by 1. 3/2 divided by 1 is equal to 3/2. Now, how else can we write 3/2? How many halves are in a whole? Well, there's 2 halves in a whole, right? So we have 1 whole, and then we have 1/2 remaining. So we have 1.5, which is exactly what we got using the number line strategy. Now, let's talk about this real quick. Why is it okay to have all these equal signs? Because sometimes it's not, and you've probably heard that before. But in this case, 3/4 divided by 2/4 is equal to 3/2 divided by 1. Well, 3/2 is equal to 3/2 divided by 1, and it's also the answer to this equation. And 1.5 is equal to 3/2. It's also equal to 3/2 divided by 1, and it's the answer to this equation. So be careful when using multiple equal signs that you ensure that every single piece is equal to each other. So what we can do when doing fraction division is we can utilize a number line. We can also notate that with common denominators like we've done today.